What is going on, everybody? Blake with the Linux Fraud, and today I wanted to watch this video from a YouTuber called Chris Titus Tech. He put out this Linux tier list, and it's like the the ultimate tier list. Down in the description it says, the definitive Linux tier list. It will make many upset, but I explain why there are so many pointless distros that score so low on the tier list. And I'll be honest, I kind of skimmed this a little bit, but I really didn't pay attention. So we're kind of going into it kind of the first time together. And I don't know, I just thought it'd be fun. If you don't remember or you haven't seen, I made a video that was titled Vanilla OS was or is a pointless distribution. I'll be a little honest, I went a little heavy-handed with it. Mainly what I was talking about was the package managers in there. They just had like the AUR, zipper, they had a bunch of different package managers in it, and I just thought that was pretty pointless. I just think it's funny, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really fucking matter. I saw this, and anywhere that there are irritated Linux fans, I think it's kind of funny, and so, yeah, I just thought it'd be pretty interesting. I don't really watch Chris Titus. I've seen some of his videos. I don't know much about him. I think he was a really big Windows guy or something like that. But yeah, I figured let's just watch this fucking video.
We choose violence when we do a Linux tier list. And honestly, people get really upset, especially when it's an honest tier list about where you are in your Linux journey. You're gonna learn a lot in this video. I've already filled in the S tier. It's Debian and Arch. Nothing else goes in the S tier. Debian, Arch, when
All right, straight out the gate. I mean, he's telling us Debian and Arch, S tier, nothing else there. Honestly, I would probably put Fedora there as well, just because it's kind of, I understand there's the whole fucking debacle with Fedora and everything right now, but still, not a bad distro. And I would probably put that up there as well.
So let's move on from that, explain the other tiers here. Hopefully you learn a lot. The pointless tier is going to make everybody mad because more than half of these distributions, all 40 or something that we have down here, will probably end up in the pointless tier, which is going to make some folks mad. But I will explain why I put those things in the pointless tier and how possibly some of them can get out of the pointless tier. Let's explain the tiers real fast to break it down. Amazing for new users. These are your noobs, just fresh, coming from like Windows or Mac or some other operating system. They don't know anything about Linux. Typically, this is where I point them. And most people will move on from the amazing tier, but some people will not, and that's okay. So that's what's going to end up here. Best for business, kind of self-explanatory. Business distributions. Creative and unique. These are distributions that are kind of around, but they are so unique that nobody really uses them, or the real niche. But they're unique enough to where they're not just a copy or a fork. The devil tier, this is going to be your big companies that do just silly things, and there's usually a lot of drama around the devil tier. So that's what's going to end up here. I think you already know what's going to end up in there if you've watched many of my past videos. The lightweight tier, this is where you put distros on anything and everything. This could be as small as a toaster, a Seagate drive I've installed some Linux distributions on, things that almost have no compute power, old netbooks that might be thrown out, that 10-year-old laptop sitting in that drawer. Typically, the distributions here will end up in those low-powered devices. And then the pointless tier, where most everything will reside, is just a fork, a copy, a slow gimmick, maybe a couple pre-installed programs that you should install yourself on like a Debian or Arch. There's going to be a lot of stuff in here, and I'll label those as such. Let's get into it, not waste any time. Alma Linux, best for business. Honestly, if I had Rocky's icon, I'd also put Rocky and Alma in here. Oracle would also reside into the best for business. These are one-to-one equivalents of Red Hat. Red Hat is the devil. I think we can easily establish that because they destroyed CentOS and made it from downstream to upstream. So CentOS used to be something completely different.
I haven't paid attention to the whole Red Hat, all that stuff. Of course, I saw it when it first happened. My point of view, I mean, it is what it is. I look at it as it's a big-ass business. What do you expect? I mean, IBM owns Red Hat, right? So I guess the closer you are to that, and if you are very integrated into the enterprise side of Linux, I could see where that could be a big idea or big deal. But from what I understand, at least from what I remember, Alma and Rocky were at least going to, from what it sounded like, they were going to make it work. Like I said, if you're super close to that, I can understand why that affects you more. But I would say from a Linux user's point of view, they probably look at big businesses as a whole kind of just evil. So that was kind of just known. I I don't know. The whole, does he put Fedora in here too?
And controversially, Fedora will also end up in here.
Right, I assumed he would. I mean, like I said, I guess I get it. It's just different point of views, right? I mean, at the end of the day, does it really matter? People are still going to use Fedora. At the end of the day, yeah, I don't know. It's just a big business owns Red Hat. It's just kind of expected, and I don't know. But then again, it doesn't hit home for me, right? I don't ever use those distributions. I would still use Fedora, honestly. Like I said, I would put that in the supreme tier. But that's just my point of view. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Use whatever the fuck you want to use. I mean, I guess you can't use RHEL anymore, right? But
Arco Linux. We're going to start making people mad again. Arco Linux is in the pointless tier. I love their Git. I steal a lot of stuff from Arco. They have so many cool customizations, and they do a great job of kind of making a new user feel at home. The problem is it's on Arch. And honestly, if you don't know how to install Arch and you don't know the inner workings of Arch, I don't think you should be in an Arch distribution.
he, he just said that like he was talking to a 5-year-old. Yeah, I do think this would probably make some people mad. Like he was saying, he uses a bunch of stuff from Arco because Eric Dubois, it almost seems like his fucking life of work. He puts so many videos out, so many tutorials and all that. He is dedicated to that distribution. At this point, because I just use vanilla Arch, I do think that you should just use Arch. But I think that like those things like Arco, Endeavor, they're really good stepping stones into an Arch distribution. And because I think without those, yes, I know you could look at it, oh, if you don't know how to install Arch the Arch way or whatever, which I don't fucking do. That's 2023. Ain't nobody fucking got time for that. Like I've said in previous videos, I don't really go in on this. I don't care about anyone else's fucking opinion, honestly. I really don't. At least when it comes to like this kind of shit, because at the end of the day, this shit does not matter. But I've decided to put my foot into this realm of, I will say this. A lot of Linux YouTubers will comment about like the Linux community as a whole, like, because it is kind of weird sometimes, right? We can all admit it's kind of weird sometimes. Sometimes I think that the Linux YouTuber community is a little bit weirder than the actual Linux community itself. And I've decided to, just dive headfirst into it because I don't know. But anyway, Arco Linux, I think has a purpose. It's like a school of Arch. If you really go through, if you can make your way through that maze of a fucking website and learn step by step how, everything that Eric's done, you go from step 1 to however many there are. And basically, it's a path to like building Arch, like building your own ISO and everything like that. So there is definitely a lot of good material there. Granted, you can just go onto the Arch wiki.
Mandraro, pointless. What happens with Mandraro? You're like, wait a second, it has some of the best customization. Titus, noobs can install Mandraro. And
that's probably the only distribution I would ever say not to actually use. Because I've always said, I mean, why would I care about what the hell somebody else has on their system? But Mandraro, for sure, is the only distribution that I would never recommend. I just wouldn't. Specifically because of just all of the fuck-ups that they've had. And if you're not familiar with all of those mishaps, you could call them, then I will link a website down below. Yeah, go down there and look at that.
Deepin. Oh, all right. Let's keep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Deepin like a Chinese distribution or Chinese based or something like that? I personally would never use it. So maybe 2 distributions I would never recommend, Deepin and Mandraro. At least I think. Let me see. Before I start talking out my ass or something. Yeah, right here, right? The company behind the development, Deepin Technology, a wholly owned subsidiary of Union Tech, is based in Wuhan, China. Now, I guess Union Tech, let's see. Because I just don't want to go speaking out my ass, right? I've done that before, and I guess that's fine. But if I can find the proper information, I would like to do that. Usually, if I'm speaking out my ass, I let it be known that I'm speaking out my ass. And hey, if you want to give your information to, the Chinese government, go right ahead.
Desktop environment, but as a distribution, KDE Neon is just silly. Like, what is going on? Why do they have apt and then they have another package manager on top of it? I get that's your dev environment, but you really want to distribute that to a whole bunch of noobs? No, stay away from KDE Neon.
Isn't there a stable version of KDE Neon? Yeah, user edition, featuring the latest officially released KDE software. Now, I don't know if this uses like brand. I would assume that this uses the latest stable packages, right? Maybe that could still be buggy and shitty. Ideal for everyday users, good for testing. I don't know. Kind of seems point blank to me.
In that same realm, we got Endeavor and Garuda too, where it kind of falls for me. In that same realm, we got Endeavor and Garuda too. Let's just grab both the Arch-based spins. Really cool customizations, huge amount of programs, same problem as Mandraro. We're gonna kind of leave it there.
Let's not put anything down with Manjaro, right? Like, just because of how that distribution is maintained, I don't think we can put any other distribution down there with Manjaro. I used Endeavor for a while, and mainly the main reason, honestly, because A, the Arch install script would not work, and point B is because I could not put a key binding to my function keys for my volume. And so I'd have to open up Pavu control and everything, and then adjust the volume in that. Yes, I know, I've looked at the Arch Wiki and everything. It won't work for some reason. And so I used Endeavor for a long time, specifically because of that, because I just wanted my fucking volume keys to work, right? You also got to look at it from a different point of view, too. Like, the Endeavor OS community is 100 times better than the Arch community. It's not like I'm very consistent on the forums or anything, but while I was using it, I would jump in there here and there just to kind of get a sense of what it was like. And everyone is just down to help, right? And they give you actual answers to your questions, and they're willing to give information that they have. So I think that's another thing that you got to look at is, yeah, while a lot of these distributions are basically the same as their parent distribution, you got to think about the communities behind it as well, because there's a lot of people that really like these distributions, and they form their community together, and they have a really close, tight-knit community that is willing to help each other out and give information. And some of those communities are way better than the parent distribution's community. Mainly just Arch, because you can't even ask a question really on Arch forums.
Now, this one is going to cause a lot of people to be mad. And originally, I was really concerned because when it comes to security and security researchers out there and ethical hackers, Kali Linux, oh man, they really love their Kali Linux. But guess what? It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. They just have a whole bunch of pre-installed programs. Yeah, they have like some gimmicks like Windows mode and stuff like that. But really, if you're going into security researching, you need to learn the fundamentals. You need to learn networking. You need to learn the basics of a Linux system. You need to learn all these things, and you should be using its upstream of Debian and installing those things specifically. You need to use the burp sweep to do something, or you need to use Metasploit to exploit something. Install it on Debian, because that's all Kali Linux is. And if you can't install those programs and you can't make those customizations, well, you're just a script kiddie at that point to me. And
So I completely get his point with Kali Linux. So the thing with Kali Linux is a bunch of different types of people use it. You've got the script kiddies that for sure, well, the thing is with them, they have just like watched Mr. Robot or something for the first time. They Googled how to be elite hacker, found out about Kali, and learned how to whip up a VM of it. And now they're trying to crack their neighbor's password or some shit. Those people are just going to fall to the wayside because they think that ethical hacking or hacking in general is just like clicking a button and that's it. They don't realize how much work actually goes into it. So yes, I agree with his point. You need to know about networking. You need to know how Linux works, and honestly, more so even Windows. You do want to learn the fundamentals of Linux, and Kali Linux is not the distro to learn the fundamentals on. So you got the script kiddies that'll fall to the wayside. You got the people that are learning about cybersecurity, and then you've also got the actual like pen testers and security researchers. Yeah, a lot of times they just whip up a VM of Kali, or they'll have it bare metal on like a spare laptop that they bring with them on engagements. And it's just an easy, yeah, you don't have to go and customize it, because if you were to go and try, and Kali is based on Debian testing, so if you were to take Debian stable like he's saying to do, and trying to tweak it like you would Kali, I think that would be a pain in the ass, and it'd be way more worthwhile to just whip up Kali in a VM or something. A lot more like security researchers that are actually in that career field use Kali a lot more than you think. They're probably running something like Ubuntu, honestly, as a base, and then having Kali as a VM or something, or like I said, having Kali on a couple of USB sticks they can just pop in, open up on their computer, and then have at it. So for people that do get pissed off with this, just don't. Just enjoy using the distribution that you do use. But Kali is definitely not pointless, because why go and tweak Ubuntu or Debian when I can just, whip up a VM of Kali and have all the tools there?
Slackware's next, creative and unique. Slackware is the original desktop Linux distribution, really. It's one of the very first Linux distributions. I want to say it's the oldest active Linux distribution. It's a little bit rough to work with, though. The package manager and some of the weirdness to Slackware. If you love compiling and building your own programs, Slackware's cool. There's a lot of OGs in Slackware. I don't want to say anything bad about it because it is the OG of Linux distributions. It's just not not my cup of tea.
He said, yeah, no, I'll pay homage, but we ain't gotta live like that no more. I've never used Slackware. I'll never use Slackware, I'm sure.
Next up's going to be Tails. And Tails is cool. It's obviously creative, unique. It's meant to run off of either a USB or CD, and it loads the entire Linux distro into memory. And then once you're done, you basically turn your computer off and everything's gone. So it's really good for like a one-off task that maybe you don't want any reminiscences of whatever happened there. I think even some governments ban Tails because they're afraid people use it for malicious purposes, and there won't be any way to track what they did. For me, it's like, I mean, honestly, I wish I had another distribution to toss in the creative unique. Cubes OS, which is Edward Snowden's one, where if you're interested in privacy, instead of using like a Tails, I'd use Cubes. It teaches compartmentalization. I did a couple videos.
So that's because Tails is not for like daily use. Cubes and Unix is definitely more so if you want a very secure and locked down desktop, and you can use it as like a daily driver if you want to do that to yourself. Tails is really good for like journalists or whistleblowers, people over in foreign countries with like dictatorships and things like that, because Tails uses the Tor network. And you can set up persistence with Tails on a USB. Yeah, Tails is definitely not an alternative to Quibs or Unix. Quibs and Unix are if you want a private. So Quibs, I believe, is like everything is containerized. Maybe it's the same thing with Unix, or like the same idea. I don't really remember. I don't really fuck around with those distributions anymore. I did when I first got into Linux. But yeah, so definitely two different things. Quibs and Tails are definitely for two different things.
And then I added one more, and that's Nabora. This is a Fedora fork made by Glorious Eggroll that is made for gaming. Glorious Eggroll knows Linux gaming better than pretty much anybody. And if you need just the best stock defaults and you just want to game in Linux, Nabora is where you should be. So if you're a gamer in Windows and you're like, I want to try Linux gaming, Nabora is where you go, because everything out of the gate is set. You don't have to know a whole lot about Linux. You can just install Nabora and go. It's really a well done distribution, even though I give it kind of a knock these days being based on Fedora, but to be expected because Glorious Eggroll, who makes it, actually works at Red Hat, so he.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, really at that point, if you're not putting Nabora in the pointless tier, shouldn't you take all of the other distributions that are in that pointless tier out of there? Because, okay, like say with the Kali thing, right, you said, now obviously they're two totally different things. Cybersecurity and gaming, two different things, sure. But if you should just go to Debian and tweak it so that you can use it like Kali, then why not take Fedora and tweak it for gaming? Like, I know he has Fedora in the devil tier, and take that dumb ideology out of the whole equation and put Fedora up in the S tier like I said it would be, like the correct way it should be, then at that point, Nabora's pointless, right? I mean, if Kali is, and if Arco is, then Nabora is, or Nabora, whatever. I'm not saying it personally is. If you're going with that mindset, then Nabora would have to be pointless as well, right? Take out what the distributions are for, right? Nabora's for gaming, Kali's for cybersecurity, even Arco, it's basically like a training camp for Arch. Strip away what what the actual distribution is and what the content is, it's still a distribution based on the parent distribution that has tweaks and different defaults to do a different thing. So if you're saying one is pointless, you kind of got to say all of them are pointless, right? I don't know. That's just kind of how I would take it if I was looking at it from this kind of like mindset. But there you have it, everybody. That was Chris Titus Tech, the ultimate distro tier list. I personally, I didn't mind it, like going through seeing other people's opinions, because the thing is other people's opinions do not offend me. So I'm cool with looking at other people's opinions, right? And bouncing my ideas off of it, seeing how opinions differ and what have you. I mean, I think that's just how society works, you know. And then those people that do get upset by such little things like that, they fall to the wayside, or they're just so vocal about it, which just don't be. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what some other guy, you know, thousands of miles away from you has to say about your distribution. He could say anything, and if you disagree with it, don't let that hurt your feelings. It's okay. And if it does hurt your feelings, go touch some grass. I promise you, you will feel better. All right, everybody, that is the video. If you did like it, consider hitting that like button because it really helps out the channel way more than you know. And also consider subscribing because we have a bunch more content coming your way.